and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Calmness in Canucks land right now for sure. Another blown lead last night, this time in Toronto, and lots of frustration on a number of different levels this week with the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to break it all down. Welcome to a Sunday edition of the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. It's been a long time since we've gathered together here. Some jerk got a job and his schedule changed, and that's hence his life. But we're gonna be well. Let's say hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, Kev?
I'm good. It's been certainly interesting following the Canucks lately. We'll get into that. I am dog sitting, and so I'm not in my usual. I'm not at home. So if you see a different background, that's why. And hello, Sean, by the way.
Hey, Kev. Yeah, I'm doing all right as well. I was out hanging out with a friend of mine yesterday for watching the game, so I'm working hurt today.
There are a couple of injuries. Tyler is injured. I believe it's a low upper body injury. Won't make it. Devin, I think, is a lower body injury. Can't make it either. I mean, it's so rough in Canucks land that Jeb, the dog I'm sitting at, I mean, we're talking about the Canucks, and he's just sitting there with a whole dour face. And he can't even hear the conversation. Like, he's just that's how down it is. So we'll get into, they're playing tonight against the Leafs, played last night against the Leafs. They're about to play the best team in the Eastern Conference anyway. Maybe we could say the best team, tied for the best record in the league with the Vegas Golden Knights, the Boston Bruins this afternoon. I'm sure also, by the way, Tyler is probably getting himself ready for the Western Final as the BC Lions have an opportunity to appear in the Grey Cup. I believe this is the first Grey Cup appearance that they will have since the early 2010s. It's been a while since we've seen the BC Lions in a Grey Cup. So I think that he's also getting himself ready for that as well.
I'll admit I'm a bandwagon fan, but I am stoked to be back on it again.
Yeah, that Nathan work is something to watch for sure. But so we will wish the Lions luck. And just in terms of where this city is at, man, they could use a winner. They could just use a win. Just anyone just win. Someone win. Can someone win, please?
Anyway. Yeah, the last time the Lions were in the Grey Cup, was 2011 when they won it.
2011. Yeah, I was thinking that. I was trying to remember. Yeah, 2011 was the last Grey Cup. So yeah.
Let's be honest. Vancouver's the antithesis of what New England is for sports trophies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we mock Toronto and all the blown stuff. There is an NBA championship in that Toronto within the last few years. There is an NBA championship.
And you can make the argument that the Blue Jays are decently good.
Yep, they're okay. They're certainly okay. I don't think they're as good as Blue Jay fans think that they are, but they're okay. Anyway, we'll get into that. I guess where I think the big, I think to break all of this down in terms of, I think it feels like a lot of like with the games, it's been a lot of lather, rinse, repeat. It's been another 2-goal lead blown last night. That you jump out to a good lead, you get a 2-0 lead. You're getting good goaltending again from Spencer Martin, and then another blown lead, and Toronto comes away, and it's of all people to score the goal, it's former Canuck Jordy Ben that finds himself in front of the net somehow, and that's the winning goal. But I think the Jim Rutherford was on Sportsnet 650. Jim Rutherford was interviewed on at the Province, and I think he was on One More Place this week where he was talking about the structure of the team and talking about how this team is unstructured. He's not happy with the structure of the team. It's hard to argue. I'm having a tough time like disagreeing with Jim Rutherford on this. I don't think anybody with the look on this team can see anything different. Sean, do you see anything different than what Jim Rutherford has been saying?
No, they're playing high risk hockey that allows them to put up goals here like in bunches and get leads, but it also makes them susceptible to giving up leads and getting scored on a lot, and it's very frustrating because it's not. If you look at the top, how the top teams play, it's a lot more of it's a simpler game. The Canucks are overthinking it, and then the structure and of the their structure just continues to just let them down because it's just an absolute mess.
Would it be fair to compare that, like the magic that Bruce's style brought to the Canucks last season, kind of let them shoot themselves out of a cannon because they felt so suppressed from what Green strategy was, but now that initial magic that Bruce had with the roster has kind of dissipated at this point?
Yeah, I think that. Well, the problem with the style that Bruce was allowed them to play last year is that it just doesn't allow for sustained success. Like you can have the short term run, and then you'll come back to the pack because it really just any mistake that is made it creates a massive problem for the team, and they just end up chasing the game more than they are dictating the pace of the game.
Yeah, first I just want to I think I really enjoy Bruce Boudreau. I really do. Like I think he's a wonderful human being. I think just I mean we got the joy of him catching up with Kevin Owens at the draft last year. He really, like when this team last year was just, it was dark. He came in with a bright light, but yeah, I have to agree with Sean. It's a little too fire wagony for where the team is at. That it's just simply not whatever. Like in terms of holding the leads, the system they're playing clearly isn't working. And pardon me, it was the second period that the Leafs came back, not the third, but still they came back from another two. It was a 2-0 deficit. The Leafs came back, and I saw a stat. I don't know who posted it last night, but within the last 5 years they blew 6 leads, and then this season they've already blown 6. So it's the structure and what is not working. And one thing that I do think we haven't talked enough about is I wonder the loss of Brad Shaw. I don't think we've talked enough about.
It's not that though, Kev.
I think that there is a little bit of that. I think a little bit of that. Like
I don't think he made that big a difference, honestly, because he was there with Travis Green, right? So it's and I sorry, I don't mean to cut you off like that, but it's just, I think it's more. I think it comes from the top for me. Like it, and Bruce for coaching, the top is Bruce, and he's not holding the players accountable for making mistakes and constantly coughing the puck up and creating instances when they're just continue to chase the game. Like I think I think that's my biggest issue right now with Bruce is that he's not holding players accountable.
Okay.
You're still seeing JT Miller play in a lot of ice time, giving JT Miller a lot of ice time when he continues to make the same mistakes over and over again by coughing the puck up and trying to force plays when they're not there.
Okay, so that's an interesting point because the whole there was a whole issue in Calgary, and I'll bring this to Vancouver, but there was a whole issue in Calgary last week when Michael Backlund got injured or benched last week for a game or in the third period, and fans were irate about the benching of Michael Backlund. Are you suggesting that it's time for Boudreau to bench someone?
Yeah, it's time. It's time for some drastic measures here. And then you look at how the interview he did with that Rutherford did with Ben Kuzma, he mentioned how good Petey's play's been, all 200 feet of it, right? And then he talked about Horvat. He did not talk about Miller, because Miller has been constantly trading turnovers in the bad way. So at some point, on the radio interview, Rutherford did, he talked about the lack of like discipline and structure within the team, and part of the and a big part of that is the giveaways, the forcing of plays when nothing's there. And until how else are they going to learn? Because they're apparently not learning from doing what's going on right now. So I think it is time to take a drastic measure and sit JT Miller for a bit, because he's done it with other players, but for some reason not JT Miller. Even though I think everyone can see it, he's forcing plays, he's making mistakes and not taking the simple play and just allowing the team to regroup.
Yeah, the one that was egregious to me this week was that giveaway in Montreal to Kirby Dach. Like, that was horrendous. Like, Dach is right there. Like, it's literally right there. He just tossed it right to him, and it's a goal. It's an instant goal. I'm like, wow. Like, he definitely, I don't think should be playing. I agree with you in the sense that he shouldn't be playing center anymore, because he doesn't get it defensively. He's much more comfortable as a winger. Like, I think he understands to play defensively as a winger. I don't see the grievous error. I mean, I don't think he's a fantastic defensive winger, but I think he's a better defensive player playing the wing than he is at center for sure.
Correct my bad memory, but what's his natural position? Like, what did he play in New York and Tampa?
Winger.
He was a winger.
Yeah,
he was a winger.
So let's not put him into a position that he's not naturally talented at or not naturally used to, and let him go back to being a winger.
He did play both, though, because when at the tail end of his career in Tampa, he was playing third line center because they had Point and Stamkos ahead of him.
Yeah, I was going to say the depth alone in Tampa justified that.
Right, but that's different than playing third line center than a top way that Boudreau is playing him now. He's basically a number one center. I'll have to look at the ice time, but it feels like he's getting, like, I'll look at the stats here, but it feels like if he's not number one, he's number two. He's in the top six. He's playing a lot. Yeah, I don't. I'm for it, but I honestly think just to go back to I have no problem when you bench players if they're not playing well. I think that's the one message that you have as a coach to get a player to play better. But I guess to play devil's advocate for Boudreaux is the bottom 6 of that group. If you're benching Miller, I think first of all, I think Petey's been fantastic. I don't think there's any argument. Petey and Bo Horvat have been tremendous, no question about it. But you go after that. Are you comfortable giving more ice time to Amon and the bottom 6 group for benching Miller?
You have to, but again, that's the whole issue here. Is that if you need Miller to be good, and how else are you sending a message to not only Miller but the whole team that the current style and all that is not good enough? Sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward, a couple steps forward, right? So fuck that thought process and say, if you're not playing well enough, you're not playing. If you're going to constantly give up, if you're going to constantly give up the puck when you're forcing plays that aren't there, take a seat on the bench. Let someone else try and play a better style.
And like Kev said, if benching a player is the coach's one tool to be what you're doing is not acceptable. So yeah, clearly Miller is in this funk and we need to send a message to him. And that's probably the most effective way of doing that is sitting his ass on the bench, make him watch the game and make him realize the error of his ways.
He is playing just for confirmation for those who he is actually getting more ice time than Petey and Horvat. They're both they're all in 20 minutes, but Miller's playing 20:57, Horvat 20:42, Pettersson 20:24. So Miller's getting more ice time than the 2 best players on the team. So that's a legitimate argument there. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. He's playing too much. And yeah, I think, I don't know. And I guess that's, to me, that's, I guess, the strength of Bruce Boudreau. The thing you love about Bruce Boudreau is he's just lovable, kind teddy bear. But I wonder if at times he doesn't know how to be hard on someone when he needs to be. And very clearly, here with Miller, he's not being hard enough, and I think that's causing a huge issue here.
Yep. And if essentially if we're putting the blame on, it's obviously we're talking about Miller, but if we're ultimately putting the blame for the Canucks struggles on Bruce, I just don't foresee Frankie and upper management wanting to have a third coach within 2 seasons. That just is not a good look.
That's been that thought has been multiple sources have said that's not an issue. If push comes to shove and they want to make a change with the head coach, that's not going to be an issue.
Okay, so Sean,
Rick Dollywell's reported that. I'm sure Satir Shaw's reported that. Drager's reported that. Friedman's reported that. That's not an issue.
And with the amount of ex-NHL head coaches that we have in our system, whether they're assistant coaches for Bruce or Jeremy Down with the AHL, I feel like there's enough people there that even if it's an interim label, that is an easy kind of solution, if you will. I'm just not sure especially if it's an assistant coach that's already under Bruce, how big of a change are they going to bring?
No, so hold on here Sean, this is the question I told Sean I had a question for him that I wanted to hear. And I kind of have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but I kind of, are you for changing the coach now?
I'd like to see a roster shakeup trade first. Because I still think there needs to be I think that move still needs to happen before you move on from Boudreaux at this point. But I'm not opposed to it. Like I am a Bruce Boudreaux fan. He's a great quote.
Gabby is
but
definitely a beauty.
But he's the outcome right now. The results right now aren't good enough, and the process isn't good enough. This isn't like they're playing hard, they're playing the right way. They're not getting the bounces. This is the process isn't good enough. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I would like to see a Ross like moving a big player out, a big trade blockbuster to maybe see if that can knock some screws loose and that is holding this team back.
So if we're going down that road, my next question would be, hypothetically, who would it be? Because right now, like with JT's big contract and with how poorly he's playing, trade value is at an all-time low for him. So
unfortunately, you're not going to be trading him.
If not him, then who?
I think you can look at any of the veteran wingers.
Do you know Brock Besser does not have a goal this year?
He's also been injured for a decent part of the season so far, but yeah, that production is not acceptable either.
And he's playing more than Garland, who has 3. He's playing more than Kuzmenko, who has 7. And you signed him to a big contract in the offseason as well. And yeah, I get he's been injured. I get he's been through a lot of personal stuff. I get it, but he doesn't have a goal.
Yeah, everyone was kind of hoping that we were going to see a totally different Brock this season now that he's kind of had time to mourn his dad, and that is no longer looming over him, that we were going to see a better Brock, a more focused Brock. But unfortunately, that kind of hasn't really appeared yet.
But again, like that's what I said, like you look at whether it's Garland or Besser, I think those are your two the two big names there. Find if you can find a way to make a roster shaking move, I think that might be something that the Canucks need to do here.
And would it have to be at forward, or do you think there could be a decent shakeup if it happened to be a defenseman?
Who's got trade value on that blue line right now? That you would want to, makes sense to trade.
Kev has an answer.
Maybe a little later, but I wonder what you would get for Luke Schenn.
Again, that's my issue with that is I don't know why would you move him?
I honestly wouldn't, but if you want to subscribe to tear it down, he would be a good playoff defenseman. A playoff team would love to have Luke Schenn on their roster. And I got to tell you, he's been surprisingly good for a guy that on a blue line that people are like much maligning. I don't think that Luke Schenn is getting enough credit for how well he's actually playing. There's a legitimate argument. You're going to always say Quinn Hughes is the best defenseman on the team, but Luke Schenn has 7 points and is a +7. I don't think he's getting enough credit because the team has been so lousy for how well he's been playing.
Yeah, I don't see that trading Luke Schenn as a part of the solution here. If we're talking about a roster, and the other thing is let's talk. The Canucks need to make a blockbuster move here, not just trade around the fringes. And as good as Luke Schenn has played, he's more of like a number 5 defenseman. If we're being honest, he's played well, but he's in that. That's not a roster shaking move. So the roster shaking moves are the opportunities for that are they're the trade baits up front. Because unless someone's willing to take on Tyler Myers, but I don't. That was the name I was
going to throw out there.
I don't see that. I don't really see that happening right now. Maybe in the off season, But I think it's time to I just don't see an option out there on the blue line right now that makes sense as a trade.
What, and I guess at this point you haven't signed Horvat. He's the guy that's probably going to be the most value, get you the most value out there. But
I
he's
just
also got,
don't see trading a captain though. Like
That move happens at the deadline. I think I don't see the Canucks. Unfortunately, I don't see the Canucks coming to terms with him before the deadline, and I think they'll trade him. But if we're looking for something a little bit in more the immediate future, like close short term for a trade, I think it's got to be Garland or Besser.
yeah.
regarding Bo, I'm almost like I regret saying what I did last season while we were still like talking about the whole Miller contract situation. Because at this point, like even though like especially with how well Miller was playing last season, I was like, you need this guy to like win and actually be successful. But I kind of want to change my answer, and I would rather keep Bo long term as opposed to having Miller. But obviously, with how they are both playing right now, it's just a lot more of a difficult situation to make that happen.
I still am a fan. I'm not gonna like. I still am a fan of JT Miller. I'm not gonna say I'm not. Um, he's just not play. He's not playing well. That's just the fact of the matter. I mean, he's producing offensively. He's got 8 power play points in 3 power play goals. I mean, he's producing offensively. He's just not doing it defensively. He's not playing a full complete 200-foot game. And that still doesn't mean to me that I don't think that JT Miller can help a hockey team, because I still strongly believe that in JT Miller. I think that there have been times this year that he's tried too much. I think there's other times this year that he's been ultimately very lazy, and he hasn't found his complete game this year. Last year he did. Last year he was like, he responded well to Bruce, and he really dragged the Canucks back into. He was part of dragging the Canucks back into the playoff fight. So I'm not gonna back down and say I'm not a JT Miller fan. I am a JT Miller fan. He's just not playing well at this particular point in time.
And yeah, just to clarify, like I wasn't saying like Miller's done for and that he's garbage for the rest of his career. He's clearly just in a funk. But I was more so talking like the overall trajectory of Horvat versus Miller. That like if I had to choose one to stick with for the next 4 or 5 years, I would rather have Horvat, the captain, stay with the team and try and get someone for Miller.
I think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I do think that the team wants to was trying to keep Horvat, though. I think that I don't believe that they were ever in the point of like, it's either Miller or Horvat. I think they wanted to ultimately keep both. And I think ideally, if things were going better, they would be in a position where they can keep both. At this point, though, you've got to ultimately make a decision in terms of what you're going to do for the future of this franchise. And the start that you're off of now changes the trajectory of what you want to do. I mean, maybe the conversation that should be having, it's a difficult one. Maybe the contract that I wonder if we end up regretting here is the signing of Besser. And it was a tough situation. I'm not trying to say that that's not, but if you move Besser for a blue liner, I mean, this would have, should have, but I wonder if that's the contract that maybe ultimately is the one that we end up regretting here.
I mean, yes and no. Yeah, he doesn't have a goal, but he's got seven assists he's played 9 games. Like he's still helping produce offense. And I don't think I think what we need to move off of with Besser is that he's a sniper. I don't think he is that. I think he's just a good good sort of all around offensive player, and he's going to go through times when he's not going to score the way he has shown in the past. But his contract's not that bad. 6.65 for 3 years. That's not a bad deal for Brock Besser, and especially with where the cap's going up, with the cap going up in the next couple of years as well. So I don't think that his contract should be looked at as a hindrance.
But I guess at this point, you've got, I guess the next question here is, you've got Kuzmenko he's got 7 goals. I don't know where I'm at with, I really like Kuzmenko, but is he a forever top 6 guy? I still would like to see a little bit. I don't.
Well,
I
he's
don't
only
know
15 games into his NHL career, right?
Yeah,
so there's still a lot of to see what he's gonna actually be.
Yeah, because
Right.
I don't think anyone had a permanent opinion on how Radulov was in his first 15 games. Like, with these guys that come over from the KHL, especially later on in their 20s, you don't really know what you're going to get, and it's just trial and error. You have to let them play and see how well they actually do succeed. And I would argue that he's kind of almost the mirror image of what Brock has been. He's gotten the fortunate goals. He's gotten the good passes from PD and whatnot, but he is probably not nearly as strong as far as a supporting role or on his defensive game, which has been Brock's kind of his pros this season, even if he hasn't been putting it in the net per se.
Fair. I'm just bringing that up for something, for, I guess, that, I mean, for where we're at here. I mean, I'm not saying that Kuzmenko's. Yeah, I don't know where I'm at with Kuzmenko. I mean, he's brought a lot of excitement. He's gotten some goals, and I think that's been good. But I mean, I still think we'll have to see more, and we'll see about that.
And Kuzmenko's got good. Yeah, he's got good chemistry with PD too. So I think there's still a lot to learn from and to figure out with Kuzmenko, but the early returns are good. Yeah. The early returns are what we were hoping he could be.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the other positives. I mean, I think we like to see. I think it's fair to say this. I mean, it's easy to be completely bashy and completely overcritical, but I'll say that I've been impressed with Mikheyev. I think he's brought a lot. I've been pretty impressed with Podkolzin this year too. I think he's been pretty good. In terms of those two, I mean, in terms of forwards, they have been those. I haven't had a problem. I don't have an issue with them. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but
the Canucks need more Mikheyevs. They need more speed. They need more direct line, straight line hockey. I've been frustrated watching them, especially in the offensive zone, when they just dink around with the puck high in the zone. Like, they need to be more willing to cycle it down low. You need to watch more Sedin, some Sedin shifts, because that's one of the reasons why they play such a high risk, high reward style, is because they play it so high. They play high in the zone. So
they're already giving up a third of the ice.
Yeah, and when you're not willing to get down into the corners and grind it out, you're going to end up passing around up in the higher in the zone. You're going to have giveaways that give up odd man rushes.
Yeah. I guess the other question, just to go through this, is what ultimately. I've stated my position. I think Höglander should be in Abbotsford. I think that this would be. I know that. I know it's tough to do that when you've given him some NHL time already, but he's been a healthy scratch a couple times. He's got one goal. I just think I think this is a guy that would do well to at least spend a chunk of time in Abbotsford to get that game together.
So
I
if
think
you're basically doing a roster swap, who takes his spot from Abby?
Well, the best player on Abbotsford right now has been Linus Karlsson.
And he did almost make the opening night roster. So, yeah, that's a fair. Yep.
The thing with Höglander is, and where the Canucks are right now, you've got the Tanner Pearson injury. So Höglander's going to get opportunities here. He's going to be on the ice. So at this point, I think you just have to I think part of the issue with Höglander too is that he doesn't have. I think he needs to be in a more structured system, because I think he would benefit from that and benefit from learning how to learn the details. But right now, that's just not what the Canucks are playing, and it's you see flashes from him. Like he's got the explosive speed, and he's got the hands. He just needs to put it together, and I think he's close. I don't agree with Kev in that I don't think that it's necessary for him to go down to Abbotsford. Back when the Canucks were fully healthy up front and he was getting healthy scratched, I'm like, I would rather him be in Abbotsford and rather see him there and playing than sitting in the press box. But if he's playing minutes, and then I think you should. I don't have an issue with him playing sort of in like a third line role right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And in the sense of agree with Kev in the sense of if the lineup was completely healthy, yeah, he probably should be spending time in Abbotsford just so that way he gets ice time, because he'll likely get pushed out of the top 12 when everyone is healthy. But I also agree with Sean's take in the sense that right now, with especially Pearson being out for 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, he's definitely going to get some ice time.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity, as Tyler's mentioned in our chat too. It's an opportunity for him to show where he's at for sure. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. But healthy. That's what I would do. But they're not. You're right. They're not healthy right now. I guess the other question then is, what on earth do you do with Jack Rathbone?
He's another one who just needs to play, and if you're not going to play him regularly, send him down to Abbotsford.
Yeah, don't give him the Mikey DiPietro treatment.
Why aren't they? Okay, so why do you think they're not playing Rathbone? Because I don't think maybe the question under that is, what have you thought of Riley Stillman?
I think they want to have a more gritty blue line. When you've got Hughes, who's an undersized, not a very physical defenseman. There's only so much. A lot of coaches don't like having too many undersized defensemen on the blue line, but Stillman's been very underwhelming. I wouldn't say he's been horrible, but he definitely isn't playing at the level that the Canucks need him to play at.
Passably mediocre.
So, and then my other one is I don't understand why they haven't played Kyle Burrows either.
Yeah,
I thought he was playing really well to begin the season.
Well,
it's been one of
the additions of Bear and Stillman, I feel like Rathbone and Burrows kind of got the unfortunate, they kind of got phased out of the top 6. So it's more from the roster changes that dictated that than their play.
Well, I think, yeah, for I like Burrows is a right shot. That right side with now that you've got Shen, Myers, and Bear is set, so he'd have to be playing on his offside. But he's done it before, and I think he's looked passable, and I think he's looked better than Riley Stillman. And then you've got Rathbone, who can bring something that is missing from that bottom pair, bring something different there with his puck moving. So at this point, if they're not going to play Rathbone on day in and day out, send him down to Abbotsford, let him get some reps down there. It's better for his development.
Yeah.
Because not only is it better for his development, but if he does become a trade chip, he's going to have more value while he's playing down in the AHL than he is being a popcorn eating player up in the press box.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you on all of that. I think Stillman has been meh, I would say. I mean, Ethan Bear has been okay. But I both Rathbone and Burrows, I'd like to see more on there. But I guess with this roster, there is a lot of things that I agree with you, Sean. Ultimately, I think we disagreed how we got there, but I think ultimately a roster shakeup needs to happen just to have some new voices and new perspectives in the dressing room. I just feel like it's a bit stale. I feel like it's a bit, I mean, you keep changing the coach. I mean, you change Boudreau, you allow Mike Yeo or Jeremy Colleton, or you bring someone else in to coach. It's the same players doing the same things over and over again. And I think you have to find a way to move that roster. And ultimately, really, I mean, traditionally, the general manager, the new management team makes that signature move to establish who this roster is, and that hasn't been done yet. I mean, I guess maybe your signature move is you sign JT Miller and you sign Brock Besser. That's your signature move, but I mean, it's typically with some sort of change, and that hasn't happened yet. And I think I'm with you that there needs to be some sort of roster shakeup here.
And didn't Rutherford make the threat that, like, even if it came to it, that he wouldn't be afraid of waiving some players, sending them down to the AHL?
Yep.
Yeah, he did. But again, though, Chris, I think what Rutherford is trying to say here, though, is Bruce needs to do something. I think that Rutherford is waiting. This is my read of this, is Rutherford is waiting for Bruce to say, okay, we're going to bench a Miller. Like we may not give him, he may not be a healthy scratch, but he's not going to be playing more than Pettersson and Horvat. We're going to be benching him.
Yep, that's exactly how I'm reading it too. He's trying. He wants to see something drastic out of the coaching staff to hold the players accountable for not playing good structure hockey.
Yeah. So ultimately, when it comes down to it, basically Bruce and Jim are playing chicken with each other. Because Bruce is kind of stuck in his ways of, like, at least what I've seen from, like, press conferences and, like, quotes from Bruce is that he's basically not responding to the stuff that Jim is saying about, like, the style and how he's doing his job and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it just reads to me like they're kind of playing chicken with each other of, like, nah, I'm going to keep on doing what I do. You do what you think you need to do.
Well, if this is a game of chicken, that's a bad omen for this organization. Like this,
I mean, I don't disagree with that. It's definitely not a good. I don't foresee any good results coming from that, but it does feel like that's how this situation's playing out.
Yeah, I guess where I would defend Bruce is you didn't bring in that significant acquisition in the offseason to help play the style that you want us to play. for whatever reason. Didn't happen. But to defend Rutherford, at the same time here, you like ultimately Bruce wasn't their pick. Bruce was Aquilini's pick. It was Boudreau first, then Rutherford, then Alvin. Uh, Rutherford has a style that he wants this team to play, and I think I think that other coaches in his age group have found a way to adjust. You look at Rick Bowness in Winnipeg, I think he's adjusted a little bit. That Winnipeg team seems to be responding to Rick Bowness pretty well. Daryl is mostly Daryl, but I think at times he's able to adapt and adjust. I just don't know if we've seen that yet from Bruce.
That's the thing, yeah. And I don't think I agree with the term of the game of chicken there, but I think Bruce is being called out because coaching isn't just X's and O's and all that. It's also holding players accountable. And I don't think Rutherford feels that Bruce has done that.
It's fair. That's a fair point. But do you feel like Bruce is kind of being stubborn about it? Because that's the feeling I'm getting from Bruce.
Well, I think he just might be frustrated with the whole situation, right? Because I think he has tried other ways of holding them accountable, but it's not working. So maybe he does need to make that drastic. Like he healthy scratched Garland, he's healthy scratched Podkolzin, he's healthy scratched Höglander, but he hasn't done anything with the main focal point of, at least within the fan base, of the issues that the Canucks are having is JT Miller. And if you can find a way to just sit him down and get him to play properly, I think it would help a lot with the Canucks. Simplify the game. But also, yeah, you need to hold these players accountable. And if there's one set of rules for JT Miller and another set for other players, that's not gonna work. You got to hold JT Miller accountable for the mistakes he's made. You got to hold other players accountable for the mistakes that they constantly make.
Kind of in the same aspect as like what Keefe did with Marner.
Yeah. I mean, he walked it back as well.
Toronto media will Toronto media.
But
so
you got
afraid that
I would love to see Bruce go out into the media and put JT Miller on blast. Because right now it's just not good enough. The play is not good enough. It's not smart hockey. You need to play smart hockey to win.
Yeah. I think that relationship is fascinating. I mean, he's even done that with Demko. He's playing Spencer Martin a lot more than Demko now because Demko hasn't been great. But I think that there's a lot more going on here that I would argue that Demko is facing. There's other issues here. Sean, just say the two words. Just
Puck
say them.
Management.
I think is affecting Demko's game. So I think, I think
Demko's overthinking and not just being more instinctual with his safe selections.
So the rumor that I read that he might be dealing with a nagging injury is completely not in the realm of possibility right now.
It's totally in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it is. I think he's been, but I do think he's thinking more than just playing. And when Demko's on, he's not thinking; he's just playing.
Yeah, that's true. Demko at his best is more feeling the game than thinking the game.
Yeah. Ultimately, our pal Keeks tweeted something this morning, 8 hours ago, 8 or 9 hours ago. I thought it was interesting. Here, I just kind of want to get your sense of what your thoughts are on this in terms of where the fans are at this particular point. And I'm not talking just necessarily the fans on Twitter. I think that's one way. But just in terms of where the fans are at, I feel sad to say this, but I genuinely feel a disconnect from this Canucks roster. Even in the past, when the team was in the gutter, you could still feel some heart and soul. Maybe it's just the way the game is now, just doesn't feel the same anymore. Are you feeling a bit disconnected from this team?
Well, I think it's now the third season in a row that they've come out of the gate absolutely flat-footed and not playing, not finding like they're going finding ways to lose games when they should be winning them. And I think it just might be more of a compounded issue here at this point, where it's just like I said, 3 seasons in a row that you had the weird season where they had the weird divisions and they got off to such a shitty start there, and then last year again, and now this year again. Like we felt a little bit of it. It's so hard to continue to say that you're invested so emotionally with a team when they continue to just do this year after year.
I hope this is the right term that I'm wanting to use, but I feel like a lot of, especially like the more diehard Canuck fans, are feeling a little jaded right now. That it's just hard to maybe feel as emotionally invested as you have been in the past or want to be, just because you don't feel that, I don't know, there's something about that connection, like the words that she used, the connection with the roster. Like you want to feel more, but you've been disappointed long enough that you just are almost kind of numb to it at this point. Like, I feel like I'm not being as eloquent as I want to be with that, but I feel like it still kind of gets the gist of what I'm trying to say.
Say it again. Just because I need to hear it again.
So, like, Canuck fans are feeling like, especially with the more diehard ones, are feeling jaded and just kind of disconnected from the roster because they've put in so much time and effort into and emotional value into the team in the past. But now that they've been as aggravating and frustrating as they have been for the past 3 seasons, it feels hard to feel connected to this roster at this point because you just keep on getting disappointed.
I think that makes sense.
And then you just throw in all the like hyper dramatization, over dramatization that happens in the media, and it's just and until there's actual winning, and you can get behind, you feel confident to get behind this team, it's going to feel that way, and it's going to take a long time before we get back there. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not nearly as emotionally invested in this team than I was even to start the season. Because it's just after starting so just poorly, I'm just like, at what point do you just sit back? Do you just take a back seat here and wait for them to actually prove to you that your emotions and time are warranted to give to them?
Yeah, because you just kind of have that feeling of, well, here we go again.
And it's honestly just, doesn't it feel exhausting that we'll get to February at this pace? We're getting to February and we're having another conversation about players to move at the trade deadline to get assets for the future. I think a lot of fans are just, for me, it's a tiring conversation because this has been a 7-year conversation, right? It was all of last year. I mean, pretty much the second half of the year. What were our topics? What do you do with JT Miller? What do you do with this roster going forward? Yeah, the Canucks were creeping themselves back into a playoff spot, but I don't think a lot of people believed that they were going to get into the playoffs, right? So I think it's just, you haven't had an opportunity to have a true good conversation about the Canucks and winning. And I'll say this: as much as there's this team tank philosophy out there, the true fans want this team to win. I don't buy that team. I don't buy fans want to see this team tank. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. I don't think that you're going to a game, put on your Canuck jersey and go tank Canuck tank Canuck tank, right? I don't buy it. I don't. I think the team, this fan base, ultimately, the majority of this fan base wants this team to win and be successful.
Well, I think that's part, like, it's the whole tank mentality now is because that's sort of just how you get good players through the draft, and tanking gives you better picks in the first round,
I mean,
regardless of whether or not you win the.
That's what got us PD and Quinn and like the successful guys in the core was being not good. So like I get it from that perspective. But sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, but it's just, for me, it's just like, yeah, do I want to turn? No fan actually wants to turn the TV on or go to the game or turn the radio on and cheer for their team to lose. There's a rational side to it where you're like, okay, yeah, if we can tank and get Bedard, and then, but the other thing is you can't just, you don't build a team. You're not going to, that tanking and getting Bedard is not going to magically turn this team around. They need to be able to get other good players to surround him. And to do that, you have to get more assets that you can move and you can use to bring those players into the organization. And that's the one thing that this, regardless of whether it's this regime or the Benning regime, hell, you go back to the Gillis regime, they've not done a good job at acquiring picks and younger players that they can have a good group, a constant flow of players coming through the system.
Yep.
And that's always been the debate, the core debate on Canucks Twitter and all, and like all that is, and on the radio and all the other places you have these discussions is, yeah, what do you do? How do you acquire those glutton of picks and prospects? You have to start willing to take a step back to take a couple steps forward, which again comes down to this probably going into the spring here and the deadline. The Canucks don't turn it around like immediately. I really hope that if they have the opportunity to sell, that they actually do. They don't just hold on and hold for false hope again, which I got caught up in last year as well. But at this point, with Bo Horvat, unless you're able to get some sort of deal that is a miracle deal that makes sense for the Canucks, and you're not hamstringing your team with the cap going forwards, I think the best option right now is to basically auction off Bo to the highest bidder at the deadline.
Yeah. I mean, in thinking about, it's just hard to continue to have that conversation year after year after year. At some point, there has to be some progress within this organization that you're actually competing for something legitimate. And it just feels like for years they've been in this mushy middle. And I think that Rutherford deserves some criticism for keeping this team in this mushy middle, too, in some ways. But
to what extent, though? Because I would argue against that in the sense that, like, COVID and the flat cap and everything has hamstrung a lot of teams from being able to do those sort of moves.
Like they were trying to make moves,
and
just nothing. Yeah, nothing came up that made sense. You can't just trade for the sake of trading. You have to make good moves. You can't just say, okay, well, I think it's easy to say hindsight's 2020, and it's easy to look back at the summer and say they should have made moves. But what moves are out there that were actually going to help the Canucks within this?
I think you look at a John Marino was moved. I think that might have been, a legitimate argument that would have been a miss. I don't know much of the we don't. To be fair to Rutherford here, he, I'm not an insider. I don't know the trades that were out there, but I kind of feel like I wonder a little bit, Sean, if you sit Rutherford down and you sit down and you grab him with a couple of beers, that I think he may have had some false hope with this team during the playoff, with the Boudreau bubble too. And maybe during that trade deadline, instead of keeping JT Miller, you move him. I mean, I know they ended up moving Tyler Mott, but I wonder if ultimately he looks back and says maybe it would have been the better move to trade JT Miller at that time, but they ended up signing him.
But that's again, that's what I was saying. Hindsight's 2020, right? But what was realistically available to the Canucks, whether it was the deadline or in the summer there, and I think it was also maybe it just wasn't. There's also the Aquilini factor too, right? The ownership factor. And I was listening to Barn Burner here in Calgary, and Rhett Warner was talking about how the Flames should have rebuilt. But is that really something that Murray Edwards was going to sign off of?
Hold on, let me just give me a second here while I just respond to that. Anyway, okay, go ahead. Okay, I'm done. Yep.
But my point is that maybe the edict being passed down from Aquilini was that you have to try and make the playoffs, and trading JT Miller doesn't put the Canucks into closer to the playoffs, and so they had to balance that act, right? So I don't think it's such a complicated situation, but at this point, I think you have to find a way to maybe take a step back and for this season to maybe take a step forward next. And that means maybe, you're going to have to make a tough decision on a Bo Horvat. You're going to have to make a tough decision on maybe a couple other players. But at this point, I think it's really time for the Canucks to look at finding ways to add ammo, whether it's young players or prospects picks, to maybe take a step forward and become a playoff team 2-3 years down the road.
I'm with you. I think I do agree with you. It's time to do that. I'm always a believer that you should try to win every game, but I also think that this roster needs a fresh coat of paint, and I think taking a couple steps back allows you to do that. I mean, just as a point, I'm not saying that I still don't know if you'll get the value, but JT Miller's contract doesn't kick in the next year, so you still could have the option of trading JT Miller this year. I'm not saying you are able to do it. But maybe, there are options of things that you can do. It's just time but it's really just time. I think ultimately it's time for Rutherford and Alvin to put their stamp on this team too. I think it's taken a little longer than usual. And I think there's a lot, you're right. There's a lot of other reasons here. And I don't know if Aquilini ultimately is comfortable during a year and a half without fans, ultimately, that he was comfortable with a lot of, going through a year of nothing. But you're off to a horrendous start, and you're off to a really rough start, and you're looking at this point. I'm not sure I see a path to a playoff run here for the Vancouver Canucks. I think you have to look at it. You have to, and one of the teams that I think has done really well with this so far and is looking like a team that could be an example for where the Canucks are the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, they're starting to get some picks. They're starting to get some guys in there. I think Kirby Dach was a solid acquisition. I mean, I would like to join. Is there a Caden Gooley for Calder Trophy club? Because I will join that club. I'd like to join that club. So they've got a few things going on there. So there's some models and stuff and examples already out there. I don't know. I would rather talk about the Canucks winning games, but I think at this point, the best thing to do, it's 3rd and 10 and you have to punt.
Yeah, I think it's time to just look to the future here and figure out who of this core that you want to actually build around going forwards, and then be aggressive in finding trades for the others.
Yeah. Anything else on the Canucks that we need to chat about?
I feel like we may have hit that dead horse enough at this point.
What did we think of the reverse retro jerseys?
I am of the opinion that they need to get rid of one stripe on the waist, but other than that, I love it. It's the fact that it goes white, green, white, green. I think they just need to keep it to green, white, green, or white, green, white. But other than that, I love having Johnny Canuck. And obviously, yes, I admit I am biased.
I think they look really, really sharp. They look a lot better on the ice than they did in that initial reveal too.
Yeah, and even especially in comparison to like when it leaked, like back in the summer. Like back in the summer, I was quite iffy on it way back then, but now that I've actually seen it on the ice with the boys wearing them, my opinion has changed quite a bit on it.
All right, Kevin, bring us down. Tell us why you don't like them.
I think they're a little too bright. I think if it were a little darker, I would probably like them. But
blue is dark.
It looks bright to me when I was watching on TV. I was like, looks like a
the blue that they normally wear on their home jerseys is much more of a brighter blue.
I for some reason I like the home blues. I like those home blues. I like that color, but I don't know that it looked too green for me. But I don't hate them. I'm not in love with them either. I'm probably I will take them over the Dallas Stars bowling jerseys, glow in the dark disco jerseys that they've got going on there, which are horrendous.
Those are so good.
You said horrendous wrong. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm sorry that I have good taste and you're just.
We need to get you some eyes, I think.
So I'm going to summarize Kev's take with a phrase that I used earlier this episode: passably mediocre.
Yeah, I would say that passably mediocre. I'm not on Don Taylor's thing that need to have stripes on the pants or whatever, but that is, but I mean, they were better than I originally thought, but I'm not huge on them. Fair. What else? In terms of that, but we've only seen them once, so I guess we'll have to see when they see them again. I got to tell you, the Cooper Alls for the Flyers, I thought that was awesome. Great to see them back. Of course, you cannot play with them because
they're too slippery,
very slippery. Yeah, but it's great. It was a great touch there.
Actually, to just touch on, you're saying we've only seen them once so far. Just to go back to the Canucks for a quick second. In the next month, we're going to see them, I think, like 5 times. Like most of the reverse retro schedule is in late November, early December.
Yeah, I think then maybe I'll have a better eye for that.
Yeah, if you want to transition to another team, you may.
Yeah, no, the Cooper Alls were good with Philly. I think that was the other highlight. Other than that, looks like we'll see the Blasties here too soon because I think Johnny and Matthew in Calgary are coming around. So yeah, we're gonna. Funny enough, as Christmas is coming by, lo and behold, look these reverse retro schedules.
I don't know if that was planned ahead of time or not.
Wow. Yeah. In terms of on ice, or I guess just wanted to point out a couple of other things, I guess, just from a Toronto. I don't know if we want to have this conversation around Mark Masters' tweet involving the Sedins and John Tavares and William Nylander and that response. For those that didn't see it, basically Mark Masters says on the night of Sedin, the Sedin's Hall of Famer, Tavares reflects on his play with William Nylander, which got Vancouver media, Vancouver people just all up in arms of another way of making something that has nothing to do with Toronto about Toronto.
It just felt forced. I think the tweet and the wording of it all it really felt forced.
That, and Vancouver fans have always kind of generally felt this way about Toronto media. So just to see it so blatant on something that's so obviously Canuck themed, to make it about the Leafs, just is like to refer to something that I said earlier in the episode, to twist something that I normally say. Toronto media will Toronto media, because they have a knack for doing this. They have a knack for somehow taking an unrelated storyline that has nothing to do with the Leafs, and then they're like, how does this affect the Leafs? That's always how they question it at the end of their thought. And it has been grating on people. I'm sure it's not just Vancouver, but obviously we're the most aware of how Vancouver area fans react to it.
Can I just play devil's advocate to this, though, a little bit?
Sure.
From my perspective, and everything that I've learned in broadcasting school, is you have to find a way to make it local. You always do, no matter what event it is, right? Like, what's the local angle when it comes to this? That, to me, was what Mark Masters was trying to do. I think if Mark Masters worded it differently, it wouldn't have come across so innocuous or so silly. But simply how Masters, it was the wording of how Masters did it. But what
like
Mark Masters
had he said that Tavares reflects on his time playing against the Sedins, and then that was it, that's fine. Yep. That's fine. But it was especially was like the twin quote. We're not twins type deal. It was just awkwardly worded, and just it played right into the right into the little brother syndrome that Vancouver has with Toronto.
Yeah, I was gonna say insecurities, but little brother syndrome, I think, kind of is a better ring to it.
A really good touch last night for Toronto. I thought they did a nice job honoring Boris Salming and starting with 6 Swedes on the ice, and I thought that was a really, really nice touch there. And I really was, what I really liked about the presentation is I don't think enough. I didn't really realize myself the trailblazer that Boris Salming was, as being one of the first Swedes to come to North America and in the NHL at the time, and just the culture. We've used the word hockey culture. What I'm saying here, this isn't about current hockey culture, but the culture at the time was, and just sort of the way that he played seemed a little bit soft in comparison to how North American played, but he wasn't that soft of a player. It just was the perception. I really appreciated the history around that. That was good. And Salming seemed legitimately emotionally touched by it.
And like, I hope this doesn't come across as I don't know, more brutal or harsh than I'm wanting it to be, but I wonder how much of his struggling with ALS kind of affected his physical response in front of everyone.
But that's just, it added the authenticity and the realness of it.
And it definitely, hits you in the gut when you watch it too. I was just curious as to like maybe just how big of a factor that affected his way of communicating his emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a good thing. And also just great to hear Rick Ball last night. He's been through a lot. Obviously, that's a pretty serious thing. He just got back, slid back into the chair, was Rick Ball again, and that was great to hear him. And again, that's a Calgary Vancouver connection too. He's done some time. He did some time in the CFL as well. So it's great to hear him. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of the opinion that Rick Ball is kind of the best broadcaster that never got the promotion to national.
Yep. He's up there. I guess the other thing, just a couple of just looking here, this may tie into. I've kind of been talking a little bit on Newsback of coaches on the hot seat, but good grief, it's what the hell, like Pittsburgh. I wonder how long they're going to hang around with Mike Sullivan.
And with the funk that the Blues are in, you could make the same question about Berube.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've got those two are definitely up there in terms of surprises that we did not expect coming, having the floor fall out from them this year. But I mean, the Pens aren't actually that far out. It's the Blues that are really, really like massively just in the tank. Like they're even they go at 10 points in 13 games. Like it's what's going on there, and what will that there's another team that's going to be potentially looking at, if they can't crawl out of this quickly, potentially looking at punting this season and looking forward with a much younger core going forwards.
Yeah, you got the Ryan O'Reilly situation. You've got, I mean, I don't know how much longer they can go with Jordan Bennington as their goaltender. He's as much interested in fighting as he is stopping the puck. Maybe more interested in fighting than stopping the puck, depending on your perspective, but that's another interesting one. Yeah. That is, that's something there. Yeah, that was, I mean, in Colorado starting to get their game together, like we knew that they would. They're 5 behind Minnesota. They're 3 behind Nashville, and they're 8 out of the first wild card spot, which is held by the Oilers. Yeah, I would suspect that they're in punting mode already this year, or should be anyway, but we'll see. I mean, there's an argument that they were in this position before and they came back and won the cup, but
different. A couple years ago, and there's more miles on their older players there.
Yeah. But
if we're talking about other teams, maybe we should finally acknowledge the chat and maybe appease Dylan a little.
Is he talk?
Having Zegras' another Michigan getting called back because of offside.
I mean, I watched that replay. I didn't watch it live, but I watched that replay, and that offside is legitimate from what I saw. So, yes, it sucks because everyone, especially the NHL, wants to market Zegras being able to do the Michigan. But that was, to me, a legitimate call.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Just get rid of video replay. I'm tired of it. Ruins the game.
Yeah.
You'd rather have fans bitch about missed calls then?
We still bitch about missed calls.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, they're gonna bitch anyway.
Yeah.
But
I'm just so tired of like, it was all right. Do we have to wait to celebrate here because whatever? And it's ruined the flow of the game for me, unfortunately.
You think the league is essentially worrying too much about getting the call right as opposed to just the heat of the moment and whatever gets called gets called?
Yep. It's not as bad as baseball, but
or sometimes football too.
oh, baseball's the worst though for it because it's like as soon as there's a close play, the camera cuts to the manager who's now like, hold on, we're holding the play, we're holding on to no, don't do anything. I have to make sure that I'm not challenging this or asking for a review. Like it's baseball's a slow enough game as it is, and then you've added this. And hockey, same thing. Like it's the amount of time that they spend like holding up the play to make sure that the coach takes like 2 minutes to decide whether or not they're challenging or not. And
yeah,
crap. Get like just there has to be a better way to do this.
But we just don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there should be. I don't know how I feel about the offside in some ways. I think that one to me, I don't quite like for a lot of these offside. It's an inch offside, or it ultimately like like maybe here would be an example. Like let's throw the Kirby Doc goal in Montreal here that Montreal scores. So they go in offside, but there's a giveaway. Like it turns out to be a giveaway that ends up a pizza given in front of the net there, and it turns out to be a goal. Is that still? And that's happened actually. That happened for the Flames against New Jersey. Zadorov gives a pizza up, but Sutter's able to challenge that for an offside. That I think has to be. I would like that to be eliminated because the offside isn't ultimately caused the goal. It was the giveaway that cost the goal, right? So I think if it's an offside within a time period, I'm okay with that challenge, but I'm not okay with it if there's been a cycle and a time in the zone. Because that to me has nothing to do with the goal. Yes, they entered offside. Yes, that was missed, but that's not the reason the goal was scored.
So you're agreeing with Dylan in the chat in the sense that he was saying that because they were in the zone for a good 20 seconds after the offside infraction, that basically it kind of nullifies that happened?
Yeah, in my mind, it does. Yeah. In my mind, like it does. Like it does nothing to do with the play.
That, and let's be honest, like there's going to be missed calls, whether it's penalties, whether it's infractions, what have you. Like, yeah, I guess it goes back to Sean's argument of like, yeah, we just need to do video review less and just maybe trust that what gets called is properly called and what gets missed. Like, we're human, but at the same time, we do our best sort of, I guess, mentality.
And then there's the goaltender interference reviews, which are just an absolute crapshoot.
Well, that's always subject to interpretation. That's an interpretive dance, right? So we just interpreted what the performance. Well, that is only wonderful goalie interference. We applaud, right? So it's like we don't know what that is, so we still haven't figured that out. I liked what that Kristen tweeted out, which she says, "If you don't see me anymore, can you explain to me what goalie interference is?" I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, because nobody knows what it is. So
yeah, I don't think anyone feels like they could have the authority of knowing what goalie interference is or isn't. And while we're having that conversation, I'm also guilty of this in our chat. I also will throw in distinct kicking motion in there as well.
That's not, yeah, that's something that definitely gets changed year to year.
Yeah, depending on what ref saw it, and yeah,
but that's also that can be pretty subjective too. Yeah,
that's the point I was trying to illustrate is that it's just as subjective as goal interference.
Well, we go back to the Blake Coleman goal in Game 5, right? That was, depending on your perspective, a lot of that was the question. Was that a distinctive goal? All right. So, just in terms of our schedule, we are scheduling ourselves for Sundays at this point. This for the next couple of weeks, I'm working afternoons, uh, guiding you through the streets of Vancouver. Go this way, don't go that way, kind of thing for the next little bit here. So Sundays we will be doing our full podcast. So get our news packs back probably Wednesday because I'll be done house sitting by Tuesday. So we'll try to figure that around that. But we'll keep an eye on things. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some hope from Vancouver. Calgary also very interesting right now as who's playing, who's not. Already some consternation about Jonathan Huberdeau in the Calgary market already, but we'll talk about that. There as I'm sure Flame fans enjoyed the line combinations that Daryl Sutter put out in practice today.
Top six Lucic.
Yeah. Bottom. Well, yeah, that's fascinating. But we'll leave it here. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
I am at Schneider on most social media.
Tyler, who we wish good luck to for the BC Lions, TNOBLE. Devin, who we wish good luck to in general, Gordhow09. I am KEVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, and hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.